Everyone hits a bump in the road. What do you do with it? Be inspired as we explore the ways people experience, navigate, and manage the ups and downs and twists and turns in this road trip called life. Welcome to another episode of Bump in the Road. The basic podcast is always free. We also have a premium subscription called Bump 2 that lets you listen in on extended behind-the-scenes conversations with our guests. Check it out at www.bumpintheroad.us. Paoola, welcome to Bump in the Road. If you would, tell us your story.
Hi, well, thank you so much for having me and giving me the opportunity to share my story. The idea of this podcast, when I first started talking to you and you mentioned to me, just the name when I read about the podcast, Bump in the Road, that has stuck with me. And I've been thinking about like all the different bumps in the roads that we have. And for me, one of them, and the big one, of course, was cancer, which kind of just blindsided me and knocked me off my balance, as I guess bumps in the roads normally do. It's been, while it's been the most challenging or one of the most challenging experiences that I've ever been through, I've been able to thankfully come out the other side now that I've had my NAD, no evidence of disease experience, having been able to look at some of the silver linings that I gained from this experience. And so how it actually started was in the most common or simplest of ways. That one day I couldn't swallow, and that was it. I just couldn't swallow. Just one time, not even like, wow, I can't swallow for a long time. No, just one time I couldn't swallow. And that stayed with me. And a couple of weeks later, it happened again. Just again, I turned my head and I couldn't swallow. And I'm like, So when I was at my dermatologist, who also happens to be my friend, I mentioned to him, this happened the other day, and I thought it was a little weird. Didn't think much of it. And he goes, just to be safe, let's get you an ultrasound, and then we'll find out if there's anything going on. I did that December 31st, 2014, and that led to a biopsy. And when I was going back, I was in Florida at the time. We were actually at Disney with my son. He was about 1.5 years, and I had my mom with me. I didn't think anything of it. The doctor was on the way from Disney to my house, and so we just stopped after a fun day at Disney. And the last thing I thought that I was going to hear that day was, it's cancer. So this doctor, not my friend, but a different doctor, comes in the room. He opens the door and he has this file in front of him, and he just looks up and like, no hello, no warning. He didn't warm me up to what he was about to tell me, knowing that I literally had my son sitting on my lap and my mom sitting to the corner. He just said, "It's cancer, kiddo." Like that. It's cancer, kiddo. And in that moment, for me, life just I finally understood that expression when life stands still and things kind of go into slow motion. And all I could hear when I think back to that appointment, all I could hear was, in Charlie Brown, when they talk and they go, wah, 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 wah. That's what I hear in my head when I think about that experience. It's like, I don't remember a word he said. I just remember thinking like, oh my God, what's going to happen to my son? And am I going to see him grow up? And how hard is this going to be? And all the millions of questions that you ask in it. And that's how I learned. That was the bump in the road for me. And that took about 5 years between surgeries and treatments and finding more tumors and more surgeries. So it was about 5 years of going through that experience and getting to see the lows and the highs and the learning that a lot of the process of going through cancer is not physical. It's actually, for me at least, it was the emotional journey. And for me, that was the hardest part. It's getting through it emotionally and finding the help, which unfortunately I waited too long to get, of somebody who could help me process all the trauma and the pain and the hurt and the anger and the frustration so that I could come out of it the other side, hopefully a slightly better version of myself than what I went into it. So that's
why a better version.
Why a better version?
Why a better version?
Because I think when I think back about my earlier years, I was, and I still am, a type A personality. Like I have to achieve, I have to do this, and I have to get here. And it's always like more, 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 more. And what I've learned through the process of getting knocked off my feet is that doing isn't the healthiest lifestyle. There's got to be a balance between doing and being. And for me now, that being part has become more and more important, and understanding not only the moment, but understanding the emotions that go with the moment and processing those emotions. I was really, really good at pushing everything that was emotionally related to the side. It's like, I don't need to feel that. I don't need to do it. It's like, I was more of I got to get all these things done, and they're going to get done no matter what. So yeah, shifting that focus to, well, what really is important in life, and how you feel about yourself when you're by yourself, and that relationship with myself. I never prioritized it before. I don't know why I didn't, but I just didn't. I never prioritized it before.
Oh, no, you're not alone. I don't think I did either. And I think one of the things that came out of me for the whole process, I also spent 6 years, I think, in and out of treatment, was how important my mental health is, and how I am responsible for making sure my mental health is well. Yes.
I couldn't agree more. I was diagnosed with anxiety, high performance anxiety disorder before all this cancer thing. And for me, cancer, it unraveled me. It's the best way I can put it. And it gave me the gift, and at the time I didn't feel like it. It was extremely painful. It gave me the gift of having to work through not only the cancer drama, but because all of this anxiety just unraveled me to the point that I really thought I was going crazy at some point. I thought, okay, I'm losing my mind, and I'm not going to ever get back to the person I was before. It forced me to deal with past traumas from childhood and, just growing up that I had pushed down so far that I thought they didn't even exist anymore. And the reality is, this is what I've learned, that unless you work through the trauma, whether it was from 2 years ago, 10 years ago, 20 years ago, thinking that you can push it down and it'll just go away, it just doesn't work that way, at least has been my experience. It's like at some point, you got to go back, work through it, do the work so you can come out the other side. And it's not easy. I mean, I know I'm sitting here and it sounds like, oh God, you did all this work and blah, blah, blah. It was not easy. I mean, there was a lot of tears, there was a lot of pain, there was a lot of confusion, a lot of loss of confidence that you just have to do it, unfortunately, somehow to get to the other side.
And I think that's a lifelong process.
Yes. Yeah.
I think when you start looking at your behaviors and you can start seeing them for what they are and what they're doing to your life, one, you have to unravel them, but as soon as you deal with one, it seems like another one comes up.
Yes.
I mean, the price of awareness is high.
I've never heard it put that way, but yes, there's always more. There's always more to peel off the layers of the complex human beings we are. So yeah, I totally agree with that.
Some people balk at the idea that cancer is a gift, and I understand that. I get it. But I think you have a choice. You can either, go down kind of the darker path with cancer, or you can, as you're saying, you work through a lot of these issues, you come out the other side a wiser and hopefully better person. I think that is the gift, and I think that gift is profound.
I agree. And I think for me, I felt at the time I didn't have the choice because I had such a young child. And if I don't know if the experience would have been for me the same had I not had my son, or at least had him so young. But for me at the time, it was not an option, right? I was going to do this somehow. I didn't know how. It took me many years to figure out how. But I had to do it, if nothing else, to be the mom that I thought my son deserved. And so to me, that was a huge incentive that helped me push forward and didn't allow me to give up. I'd like to say that if he wasn't around, I would have had that same level of courage or determination. The honest answer is I don't know. But at least for me, that was my reason that was my big why.
Well, one of the neat things that came out of your experience is your app. Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, so my friend and I, we worked together for many, many years. I think over 10 years, 15 years, we worked together at Cisco. And over that period of time, we got to travel, we got to spend so much time with each other, we got to become really great friends. She was diagnosed about, I think it was a couple years after I had been diagnosed. And when she was going through her very lows, we had a hard time with our friends coming together and being there for her and sending the right care packages and calling at the right time and arranging meal services and just trying to figure out how can we show up in the way she wanted and needed us most. And when she got a little better, I started talking to her about, I thought that because I had had cancer, I assumed that I would be well equipped to be there for you, Agnieszka. And I think I actually felt really bad. And I told her, I feel like I failed you as a friend. I feel like I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know if I was showing up when and how you needed me most. I didn't know if I made a difference and if I made it easier for you. And that was what I wanted to do. I wanted to make this whole thing just a little bit easier for you. And she said, I don't feel bad for stores. I remember she saying, like, cry. It's like, don't feel bad. Just knowing that you were there was help enough. And then we started having a bigger conversation about, well, if you and I had such a difficult time and we were so close and we both have been through the experience of cancer, what is it like for a caregiver? What is it like for a friend? What is it like for somebody who hasn't gone through that experience with somebody and you're trying to be there for a person going through cancer? And the more we started talking about it and the more we talked to other patients and other caregivers, we realized that it wasn't just her and I having this challenge. I mean, it was pretty common across the board, and there was consistent and common pain points that we all experienced. And the easiest, or I guess I should say the most prevalent of those were things around asking for help. Because I have yet to meet the person that says, I love asking for help. Asking for help. The other one was around, even though well-intended friends and family come out to want to help you, want to support you, they don't realize that sometimes they overstep bounds. And in ways that, sometimes are funny and sometimes they're extremely annoying. So that was the other thing that we both learned in our process. And we thought, okay, well, other people are feeling this too. The third pain point that we came across was just keeping people updated without like having to retell your story and relive that trauma over and over and over and over again. And then the last one was around gifts. And I know it sounds kind of silly, but you get gifts that sometimes have unintended consequences. So I had a friend that she hated getting flowers because for her, it was just a visual, as the flowers started to die, it was a visual reminder of what was happening to her. And she just, whenever she got flowers, she would just get upset. I remember getting chocolates and things that, you normally wouldn't be eating during treatment or just things that don't get used as you would think or hope. And so we thought about, well, if we could figure out a way to address these pain points and take the stress out of asking for help, offering help, keeping people updated and streamlining the gift giving experience, how could we do that? And when we started researching and talking to other ex-colleagues, we decided, and we ended up in the idea of having an app that would streamline those 4 pain points. And that's what we've done for the last, it feels like almost 2 years. We were playing with it, designing it, testing it, talking to people about it. And so now it's finally available in Google and the Apple Store.
And it's called?
My Care Crew app.
No, I think those are the major pain points. I know for me, I wanted to feel connected when I felt I needed the connection, but I almost wanted a one-way stream of information. Mm-hmm. I didn't want I didn't want it coming back at me because it will never hit me at the right time. It'll never be the right thing. It's impossible to coordinate all that. But I think that need to be connected is something that is an almost universal feeling when it
Yes.
comes to going through cancer and also a lot of other long-term illnesses.
Yeah, and I think that was actually after COVID, that was one of the big takeaways was the connection piece and the isolation of not just going through COVID, but going through COVID while you're having cancer. I was at a Cisco event that last week where they asked me to talk about my experience to their employees here in the Netherlands. And one of the things that one of the ladies brought up in the session was the isolation that she felt before COVID, and then COVID just made it worse in terms of just going through this experience and people either not knowing how to reach out or feeling that they're overburdening the patient. So they just decide it's better to just stand back. And how that has such a profound impact on our mental well-being. Because that's probably, for some people, one of the times that you'll need most connections in different ways and in different formats. But that definitely has come across in various conversations is the isolation that people experience during this cancer journey. I certainly felt it, even though I wasn't going through COVID, but I certainly felt it from the point of just feeling lost, like feeling like I had lost who I was. And when I couldn't, especially when I came back to work and I couldn't perform my usual tasks the way I used to, and I couldn't be as efficient and as effective as I used to be. And I remember how much that impacted my confidence and just the way I viewed myself. And I had to kind of recreate that identity, not from scratch, but certainly being a much more raw look at what my identity is, having gone through that experience and understanding that, maybe not, I won't ever go back to that person, or I won't ever be as efficient or as I was, or whatever the case is. I think that process was very isolating. I felt like I was going through that on my own. Like nobody had ever experienced that before. It was just me.
Oh, I think we all feel that way. But what were some of the issues you faced with being efficient back at work?
I had a really hard time just getting my brain to work. Like when I was doing accounting, I had to go back and check things 20 times because I would start with a problem and then I would lose track of what I was doing, and then I would have to restart again. Or like, was that number and that? No, wait, how did I get to that number? No, it was like the wheels just weren't turning as fast in my mind, or forgetting things. I was having a really hard time remembering things, little things. I had to write everything down. And that kind of, just those are simple examples that can have such impact on how you see yourselves. Like, okay, maybe I won't be able to do the things I used to do. And of course that goes away, right? You kind of go through your symptoms and the side effects, and eventually you get better at some of these things. But it really had an impact on me about my ability to do things the way I could do them before.
I still can't do some of the linear things I used to do.
Really?
I think what happened, I had really bad chemo brain. I actually broke down crying in Costco one day because I simply could not seem to manage to enter a 4-digit PIN. Yes. I mean, that's just so far outside of reality for me. I can't even comment on it. But I think for me, the combination of chemo brain and developing a pretty serious meditation practice really has rewired my brain. And now I'm much more right-brained and intuitive and creative. While that was always there, I think the analytical side of my brain has really taken a second position. I find it hard to stay focused on linear problems that take a large number of steps to complete, like a really complex Excel spreadsheet or something. You probably don't want me doing that anymore.
I can, that resonates with me because I was more of I'm a data person, or I need to verify when they do my personality assessment. One of the things that come up really high is the verification measurement. And so I always need to verify, and is the number right, and is this right? And I've noticed that, and I also meditate quite a bit through this experience. I've learned how to do that. I notice that now I actually stop and ask myself, how does this feel? Like when I'm making a decision, I would have never considered the feeling part of that decision now that's one of the things that I do is, okay, how does this feel? And I just sit with it for a little bit. It's like, what emotions does that bring up? I didn't realize I had done it until like the way you said it. Yeah, I've moved more from a right side brain to a left side brain. It's like, yeah, I guess maybe the meditation piece of it and like just the overall awareness of learning to know yourself and learning to sit with your thoughts and your feelings and your emotions and be able to process them, I guess makes us more intuitive, if that's...
I think intuition is a word that comes to mind for me. It's a really different way of thinking and interacting with the world, but it's also one that I think opens up an enormous world of wisdom that is not present in the analytical mindset.
Yes, I agree with that. It's a very unnerving way of experiencing things for people like myself who are very, process driven or operations driven. It's like, well, what do you mean you feel this? Or it's like, and I'm learning to navigate that experience because it's relatively new for me to be much more go with my gut, go with my emotions, go with my feelings. But I wouldn't trade that experience for the world to be able to make that shift and hopefully find the right balance between the two.
I actually think it's the best of both worlds because you have a developed analytical mind, and that is part of your neurowiring, if you will. And now you're layering on another perspective of things. I think it's a really powerful combination.
Yeah, I hope so, because that's where I'm at right now.
I tell myself that.
I'm going to go with what you said. That sounds good to me.
I wanted to go back to what you said about isolation because I think it is probably the single most profound aspect of the experience. And I think part of it is, the first month everybody's there, but if you're going through this for 6 months, 12 months, 2 years, people start to drop away. For example, I couldn't play tennis as well as I did for a whole bunch of reasons. And I found that a lot of those friends were just transitory. Yeah, they dropped out of my life. And I think that happens to a lot of people. It rearranges your social ties and obligations. People you think will be there aren't, and people you never expect step up to the plate. And I think that that's a really powerful experience because it goes to the entire construct of your world. Everything you think is real may not be.
Yes. Or how superficial some of those exchanges were that you didn't realize. Maybe they weren't from your side, but then in the end, I was blessed in the sense that I'm not a person of many acquaintances or many friends. I've always had like a handful of friends. And what I found through the experience for me was that those friendships became so much deeper and richer and just authentic. So I was blessed that I have heard many other patients that have shared how they have lost significant others and friends and close friends that people, even family members, that people just kind of stopped showing up or stopped engaging them or including them. And I can't imagine how hurtful and painful that must be on top of everything else that you're already going through, to have to deal with that kind of, in a way, rejection of the people that you thought would be there for you in your darkest times. I
think it's fear-based. I think cancer brings up the topic of mortality. Even if you're likely to survive, it still brings it up. And I think people do not, under any circumstances, want to look at their own mortality. It is just too terrifying.
Do you think that's the... Because I mean, to not show up, I can't imagine not showing up for Agnieszka or not showing up for my friend when her son was going through cancer. Like, how do you make that choice? How do you do that? I don't know. I can't.
Given that I've been there, I can't see it either. But I think that people are just uncomfortable with anything outside their status quo. Cancer is definitely outside of their status quo and probably one of their bigger fears. And if they don't know how to interact with it, it's easier to run away.
Yeah, that's Yeah, I mean, you're right. Yeah, it's just sad and unfortunate that anybody would have to go through that or experience that.
Yeah, no, and maybe I'm wrong. That has been known to happen once or twice.
Oh no, it's very common. It is unfortunately very common. Yeah, I wish we could figure that out and figure out a way. Let's come up with an app for that. You don't have to desert your friends or family.
I actually have some ideas on that. I'll talk to you about it later.
Okay, let's do that.
So where are you going with your app? Because it is really a wonderful, wonderful piece of technology. You guys have done such a good job with it.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So we've launched it in the US. We have now recently opened it up in Europe as well. And we're just focused, it's completely free and there's no strings attached. You can use it for cancer. I've gotten many questions about, well, why just cancer? I can use it going through a divorce. I can use it going through a family death. I said, people can use it for however it is they need it. I feel like I have permission to speak for cancer because that's my story, but use it any way you wish. Our hope is to get it into the hands of as many people that need to use it for as long as they need to use it. And hopefully it won't be very long that they need it. But our focus has been currently, because it's only in English. So in the US, in Europe, Australia, Canada, and the UK is where it's currently launched.
I really like the idea of applying this to other trauma situations. Mm-hmm. I mean, it really resonates with me for that.
The other one that came up last week in the conference we had which is a tough topic as well, is suicide, teenage suicide, mental health. It's like help, and this goes back to the isolation comment that we were having earlier on about helping people feel like they're not alone in whatever life challenge they're going through. So I hope to, as time goes on, that we're able to broaden our use case for it more and more so that we can hopefully help as many people as we can touch with this support.
Well, it's definitely needed, and it's a universal human need. It doesn't have any boundaries or anything like that. And I think it applies to a lot of things. That's so true of all these human emotions we have. It doesn't matter whether you experience the emotion through divorce or through cancer or whatever. The experience, the emotional aspect of it is still the same, and it's something we all share.
And we also have to go through it and figure out our way, and hopefully we can find the help that we need. And if it needs to be professional help, then please, by all means, get it. I'm a big advocate of, I think a big reason for my ability to go to the low that I went to and be able to come out the other side has been because I got professional help, and I've been in therapy for many years now. I actually enjoy it now. It has helped me so much that I'm like, I'm not ready to let you go. And I tried different types of therapy, and you just gotta kind of experiment and see what works for you. In my case, biofeedback has been a life changer for me. It's completely changed the way my brain works and how I process anxiety in a way that I didn't even realize what it feels like to be calm until I went through all this therapy. It's like, oh my God, that's what people feel when they're like, I had never experienced calm before.
That's really interesting, actually. And, it goes to one of my theories. There's a Buddhist saying that you should find the middle way. Okay. Well, you can find the middle way by, just taking half a step off center in either direction and trying to figure out what your middle is. My middle has been 2 miles off center in either direction, and somewhere in there's a middle.
Whatever works for you, whatever works, we do what we need to do.
But I'd like the idea. I wonder if you could integrate. I'm sure you could professional help into the app, because I think that is a really critical component that's missing. And as you point out, there are lots of different types of professional help you can get. It would be so cool if you could do kind of a sampler, just even as an introduction to figure out what will work for you.
Yes.
And, then maybe you or your insurance or whoever picks it up after that.
Yes. I would love to be able to, because for me, the whole mental discovery of just dealing with with this experience for me has opened up my eyes to there are so many tools and so many practices and so many different ways that you can test what works for you or whatnot to feel better. And I didn't realize that before. I didn't spend a lot of time because I guess I didn't need it at the time, or I probably did, but I didn't acknowledge that I needed it, that there's so many different tools available, whether it's therapy, talking therapy, or things like biofeedback or coaching, or there's
guided meditations,
energy medicine. And that's not to say don't follow your doctor's advice. And there's always a balance, I think. But there's so many tools out there to supplement your treatment to help you find that strength and calm and awareness that you need to get through something, whether it's cancer or somebody's death or divorce. And I just wish we could make it more available to people, easily available to people. So I would love to explore that with you, because I think you have a lot of background in that space of like, what are all these different modalities that are available, and how we can incorporate that into the app and into the online store. I would love that.
Well, that and just simply healthy living, that's something that most people really are not in that healthy living space. They really don't know the difference between, say, organic and natural. Natural is a marketing word. It means nothing, but people don't know that. And I don't go into supermarkets very often because I tend to shop more at places that have either specialty items or a lot of vegetables and that kind of thing. And I do eat a little bit of meat, organic chicken mostly, but I think that, now I'm losing my train of thought.
That's okay. This is what we do. We move on to the next.
But I think that these sorts of traumas open up the door towards really re-examining your life in terms of what is health.
Yes.
And health is multifaceted, and most of us are not living healthy lives. As I was going to say, going to the supermarket, I'm horrified by the products in the middle of the market. In the U.S. Yeah. I mean, everything's synthetic. There's corn syrup. Or do you really want to put that into your body?
Yeah.
And yet that is where the bulk of the food is, quote unquote, food is sold.
Yeah. And I guess it took cancer to get me more aware of these things. Unfortunately, I wasn't before of what you put on your body, in your body. And so one of the things that I've become much more aware now, and we actually have in our online store, we've started with clean beauty. And so we leverage things like the Think Dirty app or the EWG database to go through and find out what are truly clean products and that are EWG verified. And so we've added recently a section about clean beauty because there's so much out there. And unless, if you think about a mom that has a job and they have kids, and how much time do they have to sit down and learn about all of these terms and understand all of these? So if there was just a one place you could go and find, okay, well, that these things are verified and that they're clean beauty. That's one of the areas that we want to expand into is helping people understand and just making it easy for people to say, okay, here you can go and find clean products for your house or clean products for your body, or absolutely.
And I think it's really important. I mean, you look at something like dry cleaning with the chemicals and everything that go into a non-organic dry cleaning process. Yeah. I think I had to stop and ask myself, do I want this sitting on my skin?
Yeah.
And I came to the answer of no, I do not.
Yeah.
But I never thought about any of these things before. Now I have an organic bedding, because I spend 10 or 12 hours, in bed.
Yes.
What touches my skin? What am I breathing in? And I don't think you're sensitive to that perhaps until you've gone through an experience where you need to be.
I agree with you. And even my friends now, when we talk about these things, because they see me like they come to my house and they're okay, what are you wearing for deodorant now? And what are you doing this for like, what do you feed Milo? And it's like, it's like, how do you find all this information? It's like, you have to take the time to learn it. And it takes a lot of time, unfortunately. I wish there was an easier way to just get up to speed. And I find that it's easier. In some ways, it's easier in the U.S. in the sense that there's databases that you can follow, like the EWG or the Think Dirty app, or there's so many other great resources. In Europe, I'm sure there are these things. I haven't been able to successfully find them because here, I guess the countries are smaller and you have to go country by country. I guess the other positive side to that is that I feel like in Europe, the laws, the EU laws for food quality and what goes into cosmetics are a lot stricter. And so I have a little bit more confidence that when they say something is, they call it bio here for organic, when it's something that's bio or it has the labels, that it's relatively safe compared to going in the US. And maybe it's just a lack of not being there long recently. It's like all the different labels and all the different packaging. And when you try reading the ingredients, it's like, well, I don't understand what half of those things are.
Well, if I can't pronounce something, much less know what it is, I don't eat it. It's that simple.
Yeah, that's a good rule of thumb to follow.
No, I'm really serious. I remember sitting one day and I was having some organic tomato soup, and it was really good. I loved this soup, and I'm just slurping it down. And the carton for the soup is right in front of me. So, I'm eating, and I decide to look at the ingredients, something I hadn't done before. The number 1 or 2 ingredient, I don't recall now, was sugar, and I was horrified. I thought, oh my God, because I personally have made a decision to go as sugar-free as I possibly can. I call it, I don't want sugar in my diet. And I realized how prevalent sugar was in everything.
Everything, yeah. Even
it's
things
everywhere.
That you wouldn't even realize had sugar. And
Yeah. So that was a bit of an eye-opener. And I think the key to cultivating change in terms of lifestyle change is baby steps, gradual change.
Yeah.
Because you cannot first of all, you can't have all the information and the data you need up front. It takes a while to assimilate it and understand it. And then if you're really going to try to change your eating habits, that is not going to happen overnight. And you have to do it in a way that is interesting and sustainable.
Yes. I remember your comment from a conversation we had about, if you just add one ingredient a week or one meal a week, because to me, the most overwhelming aspect of going healthy is food. One, because I don't enjoy cooking. I've never been a big eater. And so I struggle with focusing on the food part and making that as healthy as we can. And I remember going into the store and I had, done all my meal planning for the week, and I got in my list of things I needed to get. And I remember thinking, I just got so overwhelmed in the store of like, oh my God, and I got to do all this and get that and the smooth. And I'm like, okay, maybe I just do one very healthy meal today. Or just for this week, we're going to focus on 3 very healthy meals, and the rest we're going to see how it goes.
No, and it has to be about abundance, not lack. It's about, as we were talking before, add Swiss chard or something you haven't tried before to your diet this week. Try it 3 times, 3 ways. If you don't like it, you never have to touch it again. But if you do like it, incorporate it into your diet. Yeah. And I think that that's a very positive approach, as opposed to my initial approach, which was not very positive. And that was, okay, I can't have dairy. I can't have sugar. I can't. It is. And I would open the refrigerator door and just be depressed.
Yes.
And for me, I realized I'd gone vegan and I felt great. But I realized that life without cheese was not worth living. We all have our stake in the sand, and that was one of mine. But one of the things I did realize when I stopped eating dairy for a period was how much I ate. I had no idea how much I consumed. Yeah. And the reason for our listeners that may not know, dairy tends to be, particularly cow's milk, tends to be inflammatory. Yes. So as somebody, since cancer is an inflammatory disease, it follows that maybe you want to move towards a less inflammatory diet.
That was the process that I've done because I am a latte drinker. I love my lattes here. And given my age, I was starting to feel the joint pains and the, mostly the joint pains. Like when it started getting to my hands and I was having like issues tapping, I'm like, oh my God. And my mom's always been like, you got to take the milk out of your diet. You got to take the milk out of your diet. And so I finally did it over the last 6 months. I've been transitioning to almond and coconut milk and oatmeal. And it's not the same, it's not. But I feel the difference in the pain level that I've been having in my hands. And maybe it's not just the milk piece of it, but that's been like the most significant thing that I've changed, because I wanted to see if I take it out, will I really have and see a difference in the pain I'm feeling in my joints. And I had to say it has decreased my joint pain. Like my fingers, I don't feel the pain as much when I'm typing. I can now go all day and not feel like I have to stop and, let my hands rest, which is so depressing.
I have a friend
when
who
you think about
eliminated.
it. Like having to do
Oh,
that.
it is. It is. No, I had a friend who eliminated sugar from her diet, and in about 3 days, she couldn't believe how much better she felt. I mean, the difference was 180 degrees from where she'd been. And I mention all this because for anybody thinking about what do you put in your body, it takes some time and research, as we've been saying, but this is totally doable.
It
Totally
is.
doable. And it can actually be fun.
I'm going to trust you on the fun part when it comes to
You have to
meals.
understand.
It's been fun on the product side. Like I love experimenting with new creams and the textures and all of these things. But on the food part, I'm gonna trust you on the fun.
Well, you have to understand, cooking is wired in my DNA. I can't help myself. I'm one of those people who puts lots of food in because it forces me to be creative and cook up something.
Oh, I wish
And
I had that.
I like it. For me, it's a way to relax and be creative, and I love to eat.
I wish I had more of that in me.
If you could give any advice to a friend of somebody going through a traumatic situation, what advice would you give them?
This is my always consistent answer is get professional help. Get access to somebody, and it doesn't have to be, it could be a friend or it could be, but get access to somebody who has the skills, the knowledge, the wisdom, the experience to walk you through and hold your hand through dealing with trauma. And I know in the US it's a little bit harder sometimes because of insurance and things like that to get access to the support needed. And if it's available to you, figure out a way to get professional help. I can't stress that enough. And I think for me, had I done that from the beginning, not several years later, but if I had done that from the beginning, I think my experience would have been so much easier. And so the healing, I think, maybe would have come faster, or the drop in my low wouldn't have been as low if I had just gotten the help earlier. Like the day you get diagnosed, get a therapist, get support. Don't try doing it alone.
No, I totally agree. I think it's a piece of the equation that is certainly very missing in the States, and it's left up to the individual to take the initiative to go for that. And it is something you have to do. It's just, you have to be CEO of your own health.
Yes.
Because nobody else is going to navigate the system in your interest.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think that's a very important point for patients going through the process of understanding that you have to be your own advocate. Just because a doctor says something, or that doctor said something, or that doctor says, it's up to you and it's your responsibility to look at all these different points of view, and as much as you can, try to define what's right for you. And to feel comfortable pushing back sometimes when if something doesn't feel right, doesn't sound right, it's okay to question the doctor. It's okay to question the specialist. I'm not saying go against their advice, but it's okay that you get the answers you need before you make life-altering decisions. And I think sometimes we kind of, I don't know, the white lab coat syndrome, or somebody referred to it that way the other day. I'm like, that must be what it is. Like, as soon as that white lab comes in, you're just like, okay, tell me what to do. And nobody's God. Nobody is above anybody else in terms of if it doesn't sit right with you, get a second opinion, get a third opinion, get a fifth opinion if you need to, and feel okay in pushing back.
I think you have to. I can tell numerous stories in that regard. I was not the most popular patient, but some of the decisions I made may have saved my life.
Yeah.
So, I'm all for advocating for what you need. I look at doctors as a necessary part of the equation. I think you want to listen to them. I think you want to do your own research. And I think you want to make your own decision about your care with that combination of factors and inputs. It'll never be perfect.
No.
And I think you have to stay on your toes all the time, because medical errors are everywhere, they're very real, and chances are the only person that has a chance at catching them is you, because you're the only person who has all the pieces of data about what's happening to you.
Yeah. And at least for me, my experience in the US, because I did my treatment there, I had the benefit of having a team. So there was a main doctor, but then, there's the surgeon, there's the this, there's the that. So you can hear from multiple people. I think in some countries, you may not necessarily have the benefit of having a team you work with. So you kind of go with what one person says, what the main lead oncologist says. And especially in those cases, I was helping somebody from Latin America who they're kind of going through that issue of like, this doctor's telling me this, and I'm kind of having to, like, where's your team? Where's the other experts in the conversation? They're like, well, no, it's this main. I'm like, no, you need to get an expert in this. There's an oncologist, there's a surgeon, there's the person that does this. You have to figure out who are all the different experts that you're going to have on your team, and not just go with what one person is telling you or one specialist is telling you. So
and your team may not be medical people either.
That's true. Yeah.
You may have a combination of resources that is the right combination for you.
That's absolutely. Yeah.
If you could rewrite your story, would you?
You mean in terms of like erase cancer from the story?
However you want to take the question. There's no right or wrong answer.
Oh. I don't think I would, because I think that story brought me to where I am right now. With all the issues that I may still have right now and all the things that I'm working through, it's me. It's this was my experience, and I'm here for a purpose. And I know there's a story that I still haven't lived out. So I think we all have our place in time for being, and I think this is where I'm meant to be and what I'm meant to be doing. So no, I don't think I would rewrite it.
Want to hear more of the conversation? Sign up at bumpintheroad.us as a Bump 2 subscriber. Buy us a cup of coffee. You can give it a go for free. Just use the code FREEMONTH. And thank you for listening today. I hope you found something in today's podcast that inspires you along your own life's path, because sometimes a bump in the road is actually a portal into a more conscious and meaningful life.